Hello, I'm John Fenton from the state of Wyoming and the United States of America. And my son Johnny and I traveled here, just got off the plane a few hours ago to share the story of what has happened to us on our property and the destruction of the water, the air, and our way of life, but probably more importantly, the sellout by our government and the ill treatment of everyone's human rights for corporate profit. And to show that those same companies that pillaged the United States over the last 10 or 15 years with hydrofracking are coming to Australia now and wanting to do the same here. So we want to tell our story and hope that people will listen and tell you what we've been doing to try to fight back against this destructive industry, and also to learn from Australia, because Australians have this energy and this bravery when it comes to protesting and making their voice heard that I've not seen anywhere else in the world. There's small pockets of it in our country, but nothing compared to what happens here in Australia. And so I hope that I can take a little bit of your energy home with me and inspire people by what I see here too. So thank you for giving me the chance to say a few things and to stand with you and protest against Santos and all the other companies that hope to profit by your demise. So thanks for having me here. Yes, the water where we're at is completely undrinkable. We have to haul water in. The state of Wyoming's government tried to buy us off by giving us cisterns that were paid for by the gas company that destroyed our water if we would sign the rights away to our property for 40 years for a $12,000 cistern. So we haul our water and we deal with it, but people shouldn't have to do that. And once the water's gone, what have we got? There are a few people that are taking them to court. What the United States has seen a rash of are called non-disclosure agreements, where they squeeze people down till you can't breathe anymore, till you're out of money, you're out of hope, your property's worthless. The gas company comes in and offers you money if you sign away your rights to ever talk about it. And so there's been thousands of those that have been signed in the United States. But there are people who are winning. The people in Deming, Pennsylvania just won an over $4 million lawsuit against the company who contaminated their water behind their house. And another study just came out in Pavilion confirming that our water contamination is from hydraulic fracturing and other practices, poor well construction, acidizing, you name it, they've done it and it screwed the water up.
So could you take them to court then?
Our neighbors are trying, yeah.
Is it a big issue federally?
It's big both state and federal because the United States has so much public property. And we've seen the largest transition of public property to private companies in the history of the United States since the Bush and Cheney administration. So millions of acres have been transitioned to private companies to make profit. Now what they're doing is using eminent domain laws to seize people's land and put infrastructure and projects to their land without compensation, without permission, and oftentimes under the escort of armed federal marshals. So, but I hope that, you know, with all this, we can continue to get people together and get people in the right direction and get more people to stand up and make their voices heard.
In Australia, people don't want to talk about the health impacts at the moment. A lot of the environmental groups are scared to speak out in case we're wrong, in case there's not enough evidence. Has there been evidence of health impacts over there?
There's evidence of health impacts, but that's what gets to the heart of this whole thing is they make you prove that they've damaged you. They don't have to prove that they didn't poison you because they're protected by rules that make their recipes secret. And so, but there's such a thing as common sense. People have lived in a place for years and they were healthy, and all of a sudden they drill a gas well next to them and now people are sick. we have to start using common sense. And it's very difficult to stand up and talk about health impacts. The presentation that I've put together that we'll see on Sunday, there's some talk about the health impacts, and you just have to get to the point where, just for me, I've just had enough, and so I'll talk about it. But it's difficult because it's such a personal thing. But people shouldn't have to prove that an industrial process is poisoning them when there's no other place for those chemicals to come from other than from that process.
Some people called me from Taranaki in New Zealand recently and said that they had to sign disclosure agreements after health impacts on humans and animals. A number of families were made to sign a disclosure agreement, which meant, yes, we have done wrong, but you're not allowed to speak about it. Have you seen that happen in the States?
Yes, they even, in the United States, when workers or people have come into the hospital that have been exposed to chemicals and they're sick, the doctors and the nurses, before they can treat the people, before they can find out what they've been exposed to, are required to go in another room and sign an agreement saying that they will not disclose any of the chemicals, they won't talk about any of the chemicals that the people have been exposed to and the healthcare workers are exposed to in treating those people. And some of the healthcare workers have been sickened by the chemicals that they've been exposed to. So it happens all over. Their playbook doesn't work in just one country. Their playbook was written for the whole world. And the rules that have been changed in the United States, they'll change them here too to make sure that their playbook works.
How can they force healthcare professionals to sign that?
That's a good question. I don't know how they force them to do it, but if you want to know what you're being exposed to, they won't tell you until you sign that agreement. And for us, it's part of the Energy Policy Act of 2005 where all those chemicals were exempted. So they're considered trade secrets. And so they use the weight of that law to force people to sign the non-disclosure so they can tell them what they've been exposed to. And it's not a small penalty if you break the non-disclosures. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, which for the average person is very compelling.
So how did the family in Pennsylvania manage to get way through all this?
I wish I knew.
All right.
It's bulldogged determination, and they got a jury trial, I think is what did it. If you can get this before a jury of your peers, the average person looks at this and is astonished by what happens. If it's a decision by a judge can be paid for. But a jury of your peers, I think 99% of the time, will see how ludicrous this situation is.
Are city people in Wyoming active?
Well, Wyoming's funny because 75 to 80% of the state's revenue comes from taxation of mineral extraction. And so the people, largely speaking out in Wyoming, are the people that have been impacted by it. But you can go to areas like Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas, and Texas is synonymous with oil and gas. And Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which is a huge city, is full of gas wells, full of high-volume fractured gas wells that blow out regularly and run fracking fluid down the streets and into the water, storm sewers. And people there are very active in a state that's extremely Republican and extremely oil and gas friendly. So it can happen. Wyoming's just very remote, very low population numbers, and half the people work for oil and gas. So it's difficult where we're from.
Is there any other questions? He's just flown in from America and just come straight here. So how long was the flight? Sorry, John?
15 and a half hours.
15 and a half hours.